Hi there, my name is Alex and thank you for checking out this video. In today's how-to series, we're going to be talking about how to enjoy soccer or football, as you may know it. I am an Englishman, so forgive me if I say football a little bit more than soccer. So let's get started. So soccer might seem like a bit of a simple game to some people. It's just, a bunch of guys running around on the pitch kicking a ball. But for many people, including myself, we see it as a little more complicated than that. We see it a bit more like chess, and each player is like a chess piece. In chess, some players, or some pieces rather, can only do certain roles. They can only do certain things, or they're best used in that way. And the same kind of applies to football or soccer, pretty much. And, it's a lot to talk about, and we probably can't fit everything into this 30 minutes, but I would try my best to kind of talk about the basics of it. And that way, if you don't know much about football or soccer, maybe you could learn to kind of appreciate the game a little bit more. If you already know a lot about it, well, maybe you can talk about it in English a little bit easier with this presentation. So that's the goal. We're going to be talking about, roles and tactics, exploring cultural significance, and, just ways to speak about soccer in English, what kind of terms and words to use. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the first slide. So as you can see, we're going to talk about positions first. So there are three main categories for positions. You have attack, midfield, and defense. So attack is probably the most interesting one. Of course, football is not all about the goals, but it probably is the most exciting part, and you depend on your attack to score the goals. So it's a forward's responsibility typically to score the goals. However, it's not always like their main job. They're not just always there to score goals. Sometimes their role can be to help bring in other players as well. So there is a type of forward called a false nine, which Lionel Messi played for quite a few years. And that forward drops deeper. It comes back further, towards the defense to help their team attack and to pass. So that's what Messi used to do. And, the wingers on the side of him, they would play further ahead, even though Messi was the main striker. So, there's different jobs a striker can do. If you have a tall striker, you might want your striker to help defend at certain times because the height will help to, block the shots or, stop crosses coming in over the pitch from the wide players. So, a forward typically scores goals, but their role can change a little bit depending on the tactics that are being used. Next, let's talk about defenders. So they're kind of the opposite of forwards. They want to defend their goal. They want to stop the other team not only from scoring, but they also want to stop them from creating and scoring chances. So, it's one thing to stop them from scoring, but if you can stop the other team from even getting up the pitch and close to your goal, you have a much higher chance of stopping the goals. So depending on how the defense is set up, you can even stop the other team from having any shots on target at all sometimes, which does happen from, time to time. And then you have midfielders. This is probably my favorite position, and it's the position I used to play in when I used to play in school. And what I like about midfielders is that they do a bit of both. They attack and defend. And there's also a lot of diversity to be had in midfielders. There's a lot of different types of midfielders. You have a central midfielder, a defensive midfielder, you have a left mid, right mid, attacking mid, and then there's different roles as well that come into each of those positions, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. But I used to play right mid, so kind of like where David Beckham played, for example. Obviously, I was not as good as David Beckham, not anywhere close. But, it was my job to go forward and to go back. And I liked doing a bit of both. It means that I was constantly moving. So for me, that was, the most exciting position to play. And when I watch footballers these days, I tend to watch what the midfielders are doing more than the forwards. So, for me, it's not just about seeing the goals, it's about seeing the build-up and also, seeing the team work together to defend. So, of course, goals are exciting, but make sure to watch what the other players are doing as well. But yeah, that would be pretty much it for this first slide. We're going to talk about positions in a little more depth on the next one. And we're also going to talk about formations as well, because, with different formations, you have chances to use different types of players, in different positions. So as you can see on the slide, we've got 3 different formations. We've got the 4-2-3-1 on the left-hand side. This one is very popular these days, perhaps the most popular, especially in the British Premier League. It's been, quite popular for a number of years. Then moving on, we have the 4-3-3. So this formation is kind of a bit of a Dutch formation. It's very popular in the Netherlands, but it's also very popular in Spain. And then we have the 5-2-1-2. So also a bit of a Dutch formation. The Dutch were very good at kind of coming up with ideas for new formations and new ways to play. They're very innovative in that respect. But let's talk about these different formations in a bit more depth. So going to the 4-2-3-1. This formation is pretty good because it gives you enough players to attack up front. As you can see, we kind of have 4 players at the front here. We have a CF, which means center forward. We have an AM, which means attacking midfielder. We have a LW, which means left winger. And we have a RW, which means right winger. So in this formation, these are the main attacking players. But what's good about this formation for your defensive strength is the players right here, a little further back in the midfield. These are called DMs. So a DM is a defensive midfielder. So these players typically defend a lot more than an attacking midfielder. The attacking midfielder should come back sometimes and help the defense, but with the 2 defensive midfielders there, all of the forward players in this position have a lot of freedom to do what they want. So the defensive midfielders kind of sit in front of the defense and, allow the forwards to just do what they've got to do. Let's talk about the 4-3-3 a little bit more. So this is popular in Spanish football, especially because in Spanish football and Dutch football, possession is very important. So possession essentially means to keep the ball. If you keep the ball, the other team can't score. They can't score while you have the ball at your feet. So this formation is very good because it gives you 3 midfielders in the middle of the pitch. And you don't have an attacking midfielder in this formation. So you have 1 DM who sits in the middle and he kind of shifts from left to right, and you have 2 central midfielders. So the central midfielder is more like 50-50 in terms of how they attack and defend. So they defend more than an attacking midfielder, but don't attack as much. So by having 2 central midfielders and a defensive midfielder here in the middle of the pitch, it's easier to keep the ball because you always have 3 players there, and they can, easily form triangles with the other positions to kind of keep the ball easier. You definitely want, triangles when you're passing, because if there's 1 player in the middle of 3, it's very hard for them to get the ball. So that's what 4-3-3 allows you to do. And 5-2-1 is a similar formation to the 4-3-3 in the sense that it kind of allows you to keep possession once again. So this is the formation that the Dutch team used at the Brazil World Cup in 2014. But it works a little bit differently, this formation, because the defense is different. So as you can see, we have 3 CBs. In the other formations, you have 2. So with the 3 centre backs, this allows you to have a bit of a a larger defense. You also have wing backs who kind of make sometimes a 5-man defense. Sometimes the wing backs move forward and you have more players in midfield. So this formation gives you a lot of tactical flexibility, as we call it. And in the other formations, you have right backs and left backs rather than wing backs. And the wing backs have more freedom to attack and go forward and join the midfield. Usually with a left back and a right back, you usually have one go forward and attack and the other one stay. So you always have 3 back, but with the 5-2-1-2, you already have 3 centre backs back at all times. So, the wing backs have a lot more freedom to go up the pitch. And also you can see that we have 2 strikers here. So with 2 strikers, it kind of improves your chances of winning. You're winning the game by scoring more goals. It makes it harder for the other team's defense. Some teams will play with 3 strikers, but the more strikers you have, the less midfielders or defenders you have. So it's all about finding the balance. In terms of my favorite formation here, I like the 4-3-3, the one in the middle. This one has provided the game with some great football in the past few years. Real Madrid have used this formation. Manchester United sometimes use it. Barcelona, this is the typical Barcelona formation. They pretty much always use this formation. It's very rare that they change it. And yeah, I like to see a team hold possession and slow down the game and try to find incisive passes that will cut through the defense, because usually when you're playing with 4-3-3 and you have all the possession, the other team will defend a lot. So it makes the passes kind of harder in a way when you want to attack. But it leads to some very exciting passes to watch. So that's the formation slide. Yeah, different managers will use different formations. Some managers use multiple formations for their teams. They like to change depending on who they're playing. But having a different formation gives you different strengths and different weaknesses. So there's definitely pros and cons to each one.